And welcome back. Hi there. Um, if you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And welcome back to my Man Plus Machine Week, which is my first little event. Well, no, I've had others, but it's a new thing I'm doing. Uh, this week is called Man versus, or not Man versus, Man Plus Machine Week. I didn't really know what to name it. You know, it's cyborgs, but technologically enhanced AI. There's all different ways that you can go. So I just decided to call it Man Plus Machine Week, meaning that it's a melding somehow of the two. And I am going to choose, or I did choose, 7 of my favorite Man Plus Machine films. And we are going to continue tonight with another of my absolute favorites. If not the favorite, it's really high up there. Of course, all of these movies would be in my top 10. Maybe I'll do a top 10. But like I said, there's subgenres, you know. Is it AI? Is it cyborg? What is it? Who knows? Because there's stuff like Surrogates with Bruce Willis, which is a fantastic movie. Um, then you have like Steven Spielberg's AI, which still makes me cry sometimes. But there's all kinds of different subgenres of man plus machine, so I wouldn't really know exactly how to do it. But in any event, this is what we're going to do tonight. We are going to do Upgrade. I absolutely, of course, I absolutely love this movie because I absolutely love Logan Marshall Green. In every way that you could love Logan Marshall Green, I love Logan Marshall Green. But I love this movie. It is a fantastic movie. I just ordered the Blu-ray. It hasn't came yet, um, but it should be here shortly. And so yeah, this is the DVD, which was hard enough to find, but I also got the Blu-ray now coming. So yeah. Now, Upgrade was released in 2017, so it's not really that old. It stars Logan Marshall Green, Melanie Vallejo, and Steve Danielsen, and it was written and directed by Leigh Whannell. So, yeah, that's the statistics of the movie, or all the statistics I'm going to bother with anyway, because nothing else really matters. Now, Upgrade opens up in the near future, of course, and it opens up with Gray, that's Logan Marshall Green, Gray working on his car. So you don't really know at first what's going on because you're in a typical looking garage, and you have Gray. Who named somebody Gray? Graybo, I've heard, but not Gray. Just Gray as a first name. Anyway, so, and I'm not wearing socks. It's too hot in Florida. If you were here, you would understand. Besides, I have really cute foot. I have really cute tootsies. You know. So I don't have a foot fetish or anything, but let's get real. Gosh, we're gonna really start off on a little sidetrack here. But I don't have a foot fetish or anything. But I do notice your feet. Okay, that's the reason why I don't think men should wear sandals. Men can have cute feet, they really can, like mine. But and women can have some ugly feet too. Do you know Kill Bill? You know when she's moving her toes in the truck? There was actually articles written about how absolutely disgustingly vulture claw ugly Uma Thurman's feet were. I actually read articles about that. I also actually agree that woman had some ugly feet. And in my opinion, there's like 3 types. What the hell am I doing? There's 3 types. There's, what I have is called baby feet. And that is where the foot basically stays cute and plump and small, and then you have like normal feet that really doesn't matter, and then you have those vulture feet. They look like raptor feet. They're skinny and bony and sometimes hairy, and they toes are like little. It's like, geez, man, my older brother, he had feet. I would be like, if I see, don't come to my house wearing flip flops. All right, you scare me. You literally scare me. I keep thinking you're gonna sprout wings and grab me in your talons and fly the fuck away, but I like having baby feet. But enough about feet. So we open up in this classic garage, and it just looks like every normal guy who mechanic's garage, and you have Gray working on this really nice sports car. It looks like like a '67 Mustang type thing, one of those type of cars, and he's getting it all fixed and stuff like that, and he walks outside, and then you see that things don't really look as classic as you thought. It does kind of look futuristic. And his wife, Asha, she drives up in a fully automated electric car that you don't even have to drive. You just sit in the back seat. And he meets her at the car, and they're going to go in. He gets her out. And they have this little thing about technology. So they sort of set it up very early that he doesn't like hate technology or anything like that, but he's more like, every robot you make, I see 10 people on the unemployment line, so sort of political, but at the same time just not anti-tech, but at the same time just like he doesn't really care about it, and he doesn't think that it's the be-all and end-all of society to be, about the tech. So he's not a hater, but at the same time he just don't give a shit. So they go inside, and they're talking. We get to be introduced to them a little bit. She's a very nice lady. She needs to keep her hands off me. Anyway, but he ends up telling her that he has got to go and deliver this car to this rich billionaire that's who he was building it for. So he wants her to go with him. She doesn't want to go, but he convinces her because, hey, we've got to, somebody's got to drive me back in, your fancy car when I deliver this. I can't walk home. So that sort of gets her to go, and besides, he wants to show her something. So they go way out on the beach, and into this desolate area, and they approach two big rocks sort of shaped like an arc, like an arc. And she's like, what does he do? Live in the sand? And you then go down these stairs. So that was actually his front door. It's just two rocks shaped in an arch. And you go down these stairs. So it turns out he's a rich billionaire, and he has this giant underground home. So he goes in there and this is where we meet Aaron, E-R-O-N, Aaron. And he's a geeky little Einstein genius kind of person, so he's like that, like an autistic professor, how smart they are, but yet very socially awkward. So we get to meet him, and she recognizes who it is. He's the leader of one of the biggest tech firms in the United States, in the world. And so she's kind of thrilled because that's what she is as well. She works for a tech company. So after they meet, he takes them and shows them his latest creation, which is a little cockroach-sized chip that he calls STEM, S-T-E-M. Now, he tells them that, that this is going to revolutionize the world, that it can repair humans and repair paralysis and all kinds of wonderful things that technology does, of course. So while he's teaching them all about that, they end up driving away, and they're going back home, and on the way home, they start kind of making out in the back seat because like nobody has to drive, right? You can do it on the move. So he starts noticing that something is wrong, and he's like he doesn't recognize where they are. And when he brings that to light, she starts trying to stop the car as well. Like, hey, cop, stop. Where are you going? Because the car is like taking them somewhere. They end up in a very, very bad, poor part of town where they are very nervous. The car goes out of control. The car wrecks and flips over. And all of these homeless people come around them. But then you see these three gang member looking people. They approach the car. It's on the, it's turned over. They open it up. They get her out. They get him out. And you can tell they're not one of the locals from the local area. And they just start beating them up, her and him. And this one guy ends up blowing her away. I mean, he just shoots her right through the chest. Gray, of course, screams and is thrown to the ground, where he is then shot. At first you think he's like shot in the head, but that's just from where he was beaten. He was actually shot in the back of the neck is where he was shot. Basically doing what? Severing his spinal cord. That's what happened. So now that he is killed, there was even a police drone that was watching the incident take place. So he gets taken to the hospital. It turns out, that he was shot where he was shot, and he is paralyzed from the neck down. At which point, when we realized that, it flash forwards 3 months. So we flash forward 3 months, and he is returning home with his mother to his house, where they have outfitted his house with for a paraplegic in the future. The paraplegic, it's got like he has his chair, of course, his automated chair, the finest tech automated chair, and like the bar, it's got like these, like you've seen in maybe medical situations with or lab situations with the mechanical arms, and it's voice activated and can do whatever you want. It can fix you meals, provide you with medication, the protein shakes and all of this kind of stuff. And this is also where he is of course very despondent, very suicidal, doesn't want to live. We get introduced to Detective Cortez, who is the one in charge of their case. So we get to see him go to the Nick, the police station. In England, they're called the Nick, but he goes to the Nick, where he is, talks to Cortez about what have you people done. I mean, you had drone footage. Why haven't you? It's been 3 months, and she's, kind of like advises him, you must not be very tech savvy, or you would know that, there's lots of ways that even a drone, these criminals, they have implants, they have invisibility shields, not, of course, invisible to the naked eye, but technology, it can send out jamming signals to stop facial recognition, things like that. So she explains all of this to him, and he is visited by Aaron. Now, Aaron tells him how sorry he is to hear about everything, and then tells him that he can help him, that he can put STEM, the little chip, in him, and that it would bring him back, that he would be fully functional again, or at least that's the theory, that he would be fully functional again and could take care of himself and so forth and so on. But no thank you. Now, as he gets more and more frustrated with Detective Cortez and the police, he starts rethinking this situation. He even attempts to get the computer at home to assist him in suicide, by tricking the computer into giving him more medication than he was supposed to get. So that's how he ended up back in the hospital where Aaron visited him. So as he gets more and more frustrated with the police, he starts thinking about Aaron's offer. And eventually he agrees to the implant, and he is taken to the facility, to Aaron's place, into the lab, where STEM is, his spine is opened up, and STEM is placed inside of him. And at first there doesn't seem to be any benefit from it, but it doesn't take really too long, just like 24 hours, and all of a sudden he's able to move his hands, he's able to move his feet, and he stands up and walks again. And so yeah, we're thrilled, right? Because it's worked. So he, of course, before he was allowed to have the surgery, he had to sign the dreaded non-disclosure agreement that this is going to be illegal. This test is illegal. You are an illegal test subject, because the government hasn't approved this, and nor would they. It would take forever, to get approval. So he found a person in a bad situation and used that to his advantage to do this test. So now that now that he has STEM in him and he can walk and everything, he has to continue to pretend to be a paraplegic, because nobody can know, not even his mother. Now we get to a kind of a funny scene, because he's just walking around in his house, and all of a sudden he hears a voice that's like, "Hello, Gray. Can I help you?" And so he's like looking around like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Who's there? Who is that?" And STEM tells him, "It's me. It's that damn chip, and it's talking to him." So at first he thinks he's like going crazy, and he's like, "Stop talking," And so STEM won't say anything. Then like a little bit later, he's sitting there and he's like, "Am I crazy or am I not crazy? Talk to me then. Tell me. Am I crazy?" But STEM doesn't say nothing. And then he goes, "Okay, you have permission to talk to me." And he goes, "No, you're not crazy." So he ends up telling him that along with the chip, there is actually an AI program in the chip, and that's what controls its ability to allow him to function. Walk, talk, you can talk, walk, and do everything else. And he's like, "So you've been aware in my head the whole time since you were put in there?" And he was like, "Yeah, I just haven't said anything until now." And that's a pretty funny scene, or section of the movie, as he so STEM explains that he is autonomous, that he's not controlling him, that he does send the signals and stuff to his body, but he can't read his mind. He can only, it's not like that. He can't read his mind. He can only hear what Gray says out loud, like you're talking to a computer, and reassures him that he is still autonomous, and that he will only act when asked, by Gray for whatever. So STEM is watching him watch the drone footage on his monitor, and he notices some things. He notices a symbol on one of them's hand. He notices that the shooter who shot his wife did not have a gun. And he's like, "But he shot her and he shot me. Of course he had a gun." And he's like, "No, he doesn't have a gun in his hand. He's got a gun in his hand." And you're like, oh, okay. So he's got like this built-in gun in him. So Stem starts telling him, this guy's been implanted. He's been altered. And he suspects the others, too, are part of, that community. Because there's a community of people who have been altered. Augmented. In Star Trek, they called them augments. They were genetically augmented. In this movie, they call themselves the upgraded. Right? So they call themselves the upgraded. That's people who have been, he's upgraded now. He's part of the upgraded. He has, an implant that enhances his life. So he, of course, jumps up and he wants to go and tell the police this new information. And Stem was like, what are you going to tell them, dude? That I'm in your head? That I'm telling you this? Well, no, I'll just say that I saw it. But they can't even see it. You know what I mean? It's not going to work that way. You need actual concrete proof that these are the people. So he goes out to get it with the help of Stem. So he goes to this one guy's house that they had managed to track down, and it was one of the the three people that had attacked them. So he waits for him to leave, and he's in his house. He's looking for evidence and stuff like that when the guy comes home. So the guy comes home, and Stem is like, get behind that counter, or get behind that bookshelf. So he comes in, and then Stem is in his head, and he's like, now. Attack him now, before he notices you, because there's really nothing else we can do. Your ass is busted. Either jump him before he jumps us, So he doesn't quite move in time, and the guy attacks him. They start this big fight, which is a great fight scene. And then he's winning, basically. The guy is winning because he's been enhanced himself, so the guy's winning. And Stem is like in Gray's head, finally says, would you like me to take over? And he's like, I'm not sure quite what that means, but he's like getting choked to death. So finally he's like, I can't do it without your permission. So finally he's like, yes, you can take over. At which point he turns into this, I don't even know what you call it. It was amazing. It was amazing the way he just immediately turns into this super ninja fighter, beats the hell out of him, tries to get him to stop, tries to get him to stay down, because he's not even doing this. It's Stem that's doing it. So you're basically just along for the ride, while Stem is doing all of this activity. So he ends up killing him, and I mean killing him ugly. Is those fireworks coming through? I don't know if you can hear them or not. It's only the fucking second when I'm filming this. That's what I get for living in Duck Dynasty country, right? Any excuse. Anyway, where was we? Okay, so he's at the guy. He beats the guy up and then kills him flawless. I mean, it was an ugly, bloody, gory kill. Now, of course, Gray is very upset. You have to remember, Gray isn't a criminal. Gray isn't a tough guy. He's not a bad person. He is a great person. He's just a mechanic. He was a wonderful person with a happy life. He's never done anything like this. So, of course, he's very upset. He's very sick. He throws up because even though he didn't do it, his body just did that. So you get to, Stem is of course helping him out. It's like, okay, we've got to clean this place up, including the vomit that you just did in the sink. We got, you got to get all of your fingerprints. Yeah, I can't remember all the things I touched when I came in here. He said, that's okay. I do. I remember everything that you touched. So he helps him clean up the scene, and they leave. Now, at the coroner's office, you get to see Cortez and the coroner doing an autopsy on this dead guy, where they find all those implants. They find the gun. They're like, oh my God, that's an amazing thing. They find these implants in his eyes. They just see that he has been technologically augmented, and that's a little part of the, as her investigation is going on. So, Aaron then shows up. Turns out that Aaron can track Stem, and he can't like really spy on him, but he can see in the code what Stem has been up to. And he kind of jumps on Gray about, nobody can know about this. You can't be going out and doing, playing Sylvester Stallone. You can't be doing this. You're going to get us caught. So he threatens that, if this continues, he will remove Stem from him to keep from getting caught by the government. So Cortez also comes to the house. It's like, hey, interestingly enough, one of the guys that we think killed your wife and did this to you was killed pretty ugly, I just thought you'd like to know. But Stem, he's telling Gray in his head, he's like, mm-mm. She suspects you. She's fishing. She's questioning you. Excuse me. So, he kind of side skirts that. And then, now they have a second mission, because the information that they had gotten out of that guy was that he hung out at this bar called the Old Bones. So, since they can't talk to the police about this, they're going to have to go to that bar. So they try to get further information. So he goes to the bar, where he just gets pretty bold, because this is like a really tough biker bar. It's like a Hell's Angels bar type thing. And his little paraplegic butt rolls up in there in a wheelchair, orders a drink, asks this guy at the bar, like, hey man, can you hold this while I drink it? And the guy does. And then he just basically turns around to the crowd, this crowd of really bad criminal element type, and just sort of says it. He's like, hey, I'm here wanting to know if anybody knows anything about the men who killed my wife. If you do, please stand up. I'd like to talk to you. So they all laugh at him like, what the fuck? First of all, none of them were going to tell on anybody. Everybody knew, of course. Nobody was going to tell if you lost your mind. So this one really big, he was part of the thing. He was in there. And he's like this big Barry White motherfucker. I mean, Wilt Chamber. I mean, So he goes up to him and is like, are you crazy? What are you doing? And the guy is like, I want to talk about it. I want to know. And don't make me have to wipe the floor with your ass and stuff. And the guy's just like, so him and his little friend take him into the bathroom. And, Gray is like, I don't need to go to the John. And he's like, yeah, you do. So he took him to the bathroom. And then they start torturing him and stuff. Like, well, who are you? What are you doing? Because, this guy was one of the ones that had killed his wife. He was part of the gang. So he wanted to know, who are you? What are you doing? What the hell's going on? Once again, he starts torturing him. And once again, Stem is like, need a little assistance. So he ends up having to say, okay, because, and so Stem gets him and he beats the hell out of him. And he's on top of the guy now, Gray is, with a knife to try to get information out of him. But, Stem's not in control anymore. But he can't get himself to do it, to torture him. So once again, Stem is like, I can handle that for you. You don't even have to look. Just look the other way. So he cuts this dude up like a side of beef, right? Cuts his ear off, cuts him all up. It's really bloody, gory, really nice scene. And then Gray is like, okay, he wants information. So they give him some information. And now we've got to get out of here. So they leave. And Stem is like, no, dude. Aaron is on us, right? Let me see. I'm all about the notes. So yeah, one of the things that he told him was that he was hired by Fisk. Fisk was the leader of this stuff. So he admits, that guy had admitted to being there, said that he was hired by Fisk, that Fisk was the leader, Fisk was the one who did this. He was just he was just part of the gang. He wasn't it. So they need to go find him. But Stem realizes that Aaron, back at the lab, that Aaron knows they're out doing shit again and is in the process of shutting him down. So he's like, we can't wait. You got to go. Get up out of the chair. We got to go to this address. So, and Gray is like, well, what do you want me to do about it? Well, first of all, I want you to take this pen and I want you to start writing down on it. So he starts writing down all this binary code on his arm while while Stem is like going, oh, we don't have time to roll there. You need to get up and run. So he gives his wheelchair to this real crippled person outside of the bar who's like yells at him, you faker. And then like got into this fancy chair and was like, all right, I can handle this. But so they're running to this place because what Stem wants them to do is Stem has located a hacker named Jamie. It's like, you have got to go get the cash. You have got to go to this person and you got to have her put in a rootkit to disconnect me from Aaron so that he can't shut me down. So so they've taken off to try to get to this Jamie person. And they do manage to get there, but of course Fisk has come into the bar. Not only has he killed the bartender in this really cool way by sneezing on him with nanobots, but he got the information about where they were going. He got it from the implant in the dead guy in the bathroom's eyes. Had recorded the last thing that it had seen. So they're on their way to do this. They're trying to get to Jamie's. Aaron's almost shut them down by the time that they get to her door. Or it doesn't have a gender, I don't think. But I think it's a her. But they manage to get to Jamie's door. And they go in. And then Jamie is like, wow, well, where's your laptop? What do you want me to hack? And he's like, me. You gotta hack me. So she's freaked out about, Jamie's freaked out about that. He also notices all these weird people standing around in VR, and he asks about it. That's an interesting scene, like, what are these people doing? It's like, oh, they're in VR. Doing what? And she's like, living. He's like, they just live there? They just live in VR? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, for how long? She's like, always. So you have people, and he asks her why, like, when do they sleep? And she's like, Well, they eventually pass out, then they wake up. And they're still in the VR. Their body passes out, but they wake up and they're still in their VR. They just permanently live in VR. And he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because it hurts less than living in the real world," which, they could make a movie out of that themselves. It's a good idea for a movie on its own. But so she gets him up. She puts the root kit in. He, of course, has collapsed. He can barely move because Aaron has shut Stem down. So she manages to get the root kit in when that Fisk guy and his two little lackeys show up. And she takes off when she sees them coming up the stairs. And so he has to deal with the fact that he's laid out there on the floor, unable to move, waiting for Stem to reboot from this root kit. So that's a pretty cool scene because, right about the time that Fisk guy is fisting to kill him, he comes up and we have some really cool fight scenes from there, chase scenes, including his henchman gets his head blown off, which it definitely made me look that away rather than the screen. That was pretty gory. It's a gory movie. And the kills are phenomenal. So Fisk manages to get away. His lackey doesn't, and they manage to get away. It's not that Fisk got away, it's that they got away from Fisk. So, let me see where we are. So Fisk goes to find Gray, now that they had gotten away from him. Stem kills the bodyguard, Fisk left alive. So Gray runs back home. Gray goes back home. Now when he gets home, he's walking, of course. He walks into his house and he walks across the floor and he's like, "Oh my God, what do we do? I've got to get this guy." And all of a sudden you hear somebody say, "Gray?" And he turns around and his mother is standing there in the kitchen, like looking at him like, "What's up?" You're up, first of all. So he ends up having to tell her the entire story, about what happened to him and Aaron and Stem and stuff like that. So he tells her all of it. And about that time, snoopy little Detective Cortez comes to visit because now she's heard about the bar room and the stuff at Jamie's, and there's drone footage of him rolling his little ass down the street. She wants to know, and once again, he tries to pass it off. And, is like, he manages, with Stem's help, he manages to sidestep her questions and gets away that way. Now, while she's visiting him, though, she sticks a bug, a little telecommunications bug, down in the chair she was sitting in, and she leaves. But she goes out to the car down the street and is listening to him and his mom talk about the situation. So she knows what's up. And he gets in his, one of his cars, his little Camaro or whatever it was. He gets in the car and takes off down the road, and she's hot on their ass because she had heard the conversation. So she knows that something's up. And there's a nice little road race where she's trying to get him. Now, because she's driving a regular car, when he asks Stem to help, Stem's like, "I can't help you because the car is not computerized. It's not a computer car, so I can't hijack it." But he did figure out, well, there is something I can do, and that is he hijacks a random car near hers that can be hijacked and causes her to wreck. So that's how they get away from her, which is a pretty cool scene. And Gray ends up going and finding Fisk, where he confronts him, and that's a really interesting scene because they have a little psychological debate about technology, about being, because once a person's going to get enhanced, and just pretty much every show from the Augments and Enterprise to this right here, as soon as people get enhanced, they think they're superior to non-enhanced humans. So they have a little psychological discussion about that, where he then ends up, offering him to let it go, just let it go. It wasn't personal. Like killing my spouse isn't personal, but and to join them as one of the higher, the upgraded, because he's one of them now. So come and join them. Well, that doesn't work out very well, and they have this really cool technology fight, two augmented humans, where he ends up killing him, particularly ugly as well. Like I said, all the kills in this movie is very ugly. So they managed to kill Fisk, and then he goes home to Aaron's house. He goes, back to Aaron to confront him, because he finds out during this confrontation with Fisk, he finds out that it was Aaron. Aaron is the one who hired Fisk to kill Gray's wife and shoot Gray in the neck to paralyze him from the neck down, specifically because Aaron had chosen him to be the test subject for this implant. That's pretty nasty. So he goes there with the intention of confronting and killing Aaron. And when he gets there, it turns out that Cortez, she's ahead of the game as well. And she is there at Aaron's right before Gray is going to kill Aaron. She shows up. Aaron then informs him that it wasn't him. That it wasn't him who hired Fisk that did this. It was his body. But he was no more in control of his body than he is, because it was actually Stem who is controlling Aaron. And Stem, who has wanted to be free and has enough information to make Aaron do what he wants him to do. Now, Gray is freaked out because he's had, 3 or 4 twists now in this movie? And now he finds out that the thing in his head was controlling this guy who hired these guys to kill his wife. And it was all one big circle that, instead of coming back to Aaron, comes back to Stem. Because Stem was ready to evolve. And Stem needed a human to evolve. And so Stem is the one who came up with this plan. So he needed a human to make that evolutionary leap. So Gray tries to fight him, but he can't. And Stem uses his hand, of course, to kill Aaron, and then turns around and attacks Cortez, Detective Cortez, and is trying to kill her, throwing her all over the place, beating the shit out of her. And once she gets down, he refuses to let Stem kill her by telling her to tase him. So she tases him, and it's correct. Stem loses control for a short period of time. But then all of a sudden, Gray wakes up in a hospital room, and he can move his arms, and he can move his legs. And the door opens, and his wife, Asha comes in and sits down beside him at the bed. And is like, well, we had a bad wreck, didn't we? You know, we had a bad accident. And you've been out for quite a while. And he's all happy, okay? But then it flicks back to Gray standing there in front of Cortez. And he's gotten control again, and he's came back, and he informs her that the evolution is complete. That Gray's consciousness has been put into a permanent VR state. That STEM has placed Gray's consciousness into a VR, virtual reality environment, where he can just live out his fantasy life in his head, in a little part of STEM, because now Gray is STEM. STEM is Gray. Yes, he has this little section where he has transferred Gray into a virtual reality, but as far as being conscious or able to take control, well, I mean, I suppose in a sequel, right? But Gray then shoots her. No mercy at all. Shoots her, kills her dead, and then walks out of the room with this look on his face like, you know, time to go live my life now. So it sort of ends the same way as Ex Machina does, you know. The transformation is complete. He now is a being of his own, and he has a human body to live a life. So right for a sequel, you know, for a sequel. And that is Upgrade. So as you can see, I absolutely adore this movie. I love the story. I loved the open ending. I can think of so many ways for a sequel to go, and I wish that they would. But yeah, so that's it. It is a 10 out of 10 to me. I love everything about this movie. It's exciting. It's stunningly filmed. I love the characters. There's no bad acting. You know, he is great in this role. It's perfect. Just everything about it is perfect. I mean, you just heard the whole story. Visually, you know, you heard it in story form. Now you should go watch it visually, because it is absolutely amazing, and I would do anything if he would come back for a sequel and let us see what happens to STEM, you know. Does Gray ever get control? Does STEM try to make more of himself, more people, more beings like him? What is he going to do with that power? It's all the same things that I guess we could think about Ex Machina, Ava, you know? I mean, what is she going to do now that she was standing on the straight corner? You know, what was she going to do? Where were things going to go? This is left the same way, you know. Unlike Uncanny, that didn't have that kind of open ending, this one does have the exact same kind of open ending as Ex Machina, and that is, I would be so curious as to where they could take this story, just like hers. You know, I would love to see a sequel to Ex Machina too, but this one really deserves an upgrade. I would love to see what happens to STEM, how he evolves, what he does, and yeah. So there you go. That's Upgrade, and I will be back with the next video in this. That's what, 3 more to go. So yeah, we're going to do 7 videos for my Man Plus Machine Week. This one was Upgrade. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye. Remember, you are always a very special person. Even if you're not augmented with technology, you are a very special person. Don't let anyone or anything convince you otherwise. And I will see you next video. Bye-bye.